Hey church, and welcome to this week's small group. Now this last week we started a brand new series called Fringe, Friend, Family. And the whole purpose of that is how do we bring people who are on the fringe of our church into the family? And the question that we asked was, how do we bring people into the family of our church? And the answer was, it begins by being a friend. So let's jump right into our small group for this week. Read Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 through 6. Count how many times the word unity or one is used in the first few verses of this chapter. What do you think Paul is trying to communicate in this chapter just by reading the first few verses? Actually, you are going to find that these words are peppered throughout the entire chapter. And Paul actually goes on to describe the church as a body with many parts. You see, Paul wanted to communicate that we should be unified. We should be like a body. We should be a family. Next, answer these two questions based on the scriptures that you already read. As Paul explains how to show Christ in verses 2 through 3, what do you think you struggle with the most? And why is it important to show Christ within your church family? Not just out there with lost people, but within your church family. I think out of everything on that list, I probably struggle with patience the most. I think I could be a better member of the Pulse family if I was a little more patient. To be honest, I could probably stand to be a little bit more humble and gentle too, but we're going to start with the patience thing. Next, I want you to read Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 through 13. According to Paul, what is the purpose of spiritual gifts? And how are you using your gifts to help others in the church to grow? And if you aren't using your gifts, how might you start? Some of you don't know what your gift is, but if you think about it, there's some of us here that you just love to serve. Or perhaps you love to encourage other people. Maybe that's exactly what God wants you to do at the Pulse. The truth is, everyone has gifts that can be used to build up the Pulse family. Read Ephesians chapter 4, verses 14 through 16. If we each use our unique gifts to help each other grow, what will be the result in the church according to these verses? And what keeps most people from discovering their gifts and using those gifts to help each other grow? Pulse family, I honestly believe that this is what it's going to take to make our church grow. I'm not what makes this church special. You are. Because at the end of the day, I can only have so many personal friendships with people. But if you would be willing to open yourself up, man, God has given you some gifts that other people in this church absolutely need. I can't do what God has uniquely gifted you to do. Read Ephesians chapter 4, verses 25 through 32. What does Paul mean when he says, in your anger, do not sin? Or in another translation, it says, be angry and do not sin. What are the ways Paul tells the church to stop behaving? And which of these is most convicting to you? So we find out that it's not actually a sin to be angry. Sometimes it's completely and perfectly okay to feel that emotion of anger. But it's not okay to hold that anger. It's not okay to be bitter or to hold hatred in our hearts. What are the ways that God calls the church to behave? And what is one way that you can be more helpful to those in your church family this week? So finally, I want you to close in prayer and ask God to teach the Pulse how to be the kind of family that Jesus wants it to be. And remember, it all begins by being a friend. Have a great rest of your small group, and we'll see you on Sunday.